My guest today can't recall the exact moment he died, but we talk about it on today's episode of God Dots. Welcome to God Dots Radio, bringing you unforgettable stories of divine connections. These are real stories about real people who experienced a coincidence so amazing, God must be in it. I'm your host, the God Dots guy, Kevin Norberg. Hey, I am feeling good today. I hope you are too. I am so glad you're here to join me on God Dots Radio. You know, God has been up to something good again, and we're here to talk about it. My guest today on the podcast is a young man who ran a race, a 10-mile race here in Minneapolis, St. Paul a few months ago. And during the race, his heart stopped. He dropped to the pavement, had no pulse for 15 minutes, and was clinically dead. And the only reason that he can be here to talk about it today is because of a series of God Dots. So let's go to my interview with Tyler Moon. So this is Tyler Moon. Tyler, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I kind of set it up by telling people that in running in it was the 10-mile, tell us, the race was the 10-mile.
Twin Cities 10 Mile.
Twin Cities 10 Mile. It's connected with the Twin Cities Marathon, but another piece of that.
Yeah, it was on Sunday, October 6th. Started at 7 a.m. down in downtown Minneapolis.
Okay. So we'll walk through that whole story, but before we get into that, we want to know a little bit about Tyler. Tell us a little bit about your story, man. You know, a little of your background and bring us up to speed up to the October 6th date.
Yeah, so originally I was born in Illinois, lived there for about a year, then moved up to Minnesota. So I kind of consider Minnesota my home. I've been here since I was 1 year old, but I grew up in a place called Sauk Rapids and kind of grew up with I'd say a normal life. I have one older brother and two awesome parents, and grew up very active, very involved with church activities, school activities, sports, anything you could think of. My parents were wanting me to go for it and go do it. So as I got older, I focused a lot more on sports, and I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, played football, basketball, and then ran track as well. And then when I went to college, I went to Luther College, which is down in Iowa, and I actually had the privilege to play football down there. So that was kind of where I really took my passion for football and took it to the next level.
Cool. I've been to your campus. I had a good friend from high school who went to Luther, and I drove down for a weekend and just to see the campus and kind of go through the town. Beautiful, beautiful town, beautiful area, and a great school.
Yeah, I love Luther. It's like, I always will rave about it. I came from kind of a small town in Minnesota, and Decorah was smaller than what I thought was a small town, and you don't really know what you're getting into. There's not much around there, but the community there is so strong. And it just builds life from the center there. So I had a great experience there, educationally and socially and spiritually, and also through athletics. And I just love the place a lot.
Cool. So that kind of takes us through, you're like 22, 23, and you're 25 now, is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
25.
So just a couple years out of school, 2-3 years out of college, and you want to share with us what your work is, what you do?
Yeah. So after I graduated from Luther, I actually worked for a company called Aramark. It's a food service provider for colleges, hospitals, event centers, things like that. I moved out to the East Coast for a year and lived in Charleston, South Carolina. And that was just I had a year, kind of like a year-long management training experience there, which was really good. It was a great year of kind of transformation in a lot of different ways. And that's when I kind of started getting into running. So after I left college, I was 275 pounds because I played offensive line. And,
wow.
And most people look at me now and say, that's not true. You didn't play offensive line. And I'm like, yeah, I did. But when I moved away and just got into running and started doing that more, had a big kind of transformation with my faith as well. Really dug deep into what I what I believed. And yeah, just really grew a lot there. And then after that experience, I moved back to the Twin Cities, still with Aramark, working with them. And then I got recently in January of 2019, took a job at General Mills up in Golden Valley. So I work there
sure.
now.
Yeah, I grew up about a mile from there.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
just right up 169, right by Medicine Lake.
Right.
Yeah, so I know General Mills well. And of course, everybody around the world's familiar with General Mills products. So you're working for a great company.
Mm-hmm.
So what prompted you to run the 10 mile? Had you run a race like that before?
It's a great question, Kevin. So I never thought I'd be running 10 miles and doing that sort of thing. Just kind of being a football player, we don't run unless we are told to, really. But actually, I ran. So I kind of got into running after college, and it's a good way to stay fit. And once you're an athlete, whether you're high school or college, once your competition ends, you're kind of like, what do I do now with my time? How do I spend my energy? How do I spend my time? And so I'd always been kind of looking for something to get into. And I'd previously done a 5K, like a turkey trot 5K with my family. And that was fine. I actually lost to my dad, which was kind of embarrassing, but that's kind of my only real first race. But last year, so the marathon of 2018, I watched my fiance's brother run, and it was just a cool experience. So the Twin Cities Marathon, and if you haven't been there, it's an awesome experience. The streets are just lined with people, and just an awesome and encouraging experience. And watching him do it was like, I was like, you know what, I can do this. I could show up and do this, and this just seems like an awesome thing to train for and an awesome thing to get into. So I wasn't sure if I could do the marathon this year, so I thought I'll just do the 10 mile. So one of my resolutions in 2019 was to run the Twin Cities 10 mile. That was my one of my kind of athletic resolutions. You
had to prove to your future, or to your dad, right, and your future bride, that you could do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually asked my dad if he wanted to run the 10 mile with me, and he was like, I don't know. I'm not sure that might be too far for me. But he would always give me a hard time about that. Remember that one time you lost to me? Like, are you sure you want me to run with you again? Like all that stuff. So,
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it was good.
Fun. So you got ready for the race, and so take us through race day. It's October 6th, and my wife and I live a block from U.S. Bank Stadium, which is where the race starts, right?
Right.
And then it ends at the Capitol, the Minnesota Capitol.
Yeah, so it starts at U.S. Bank Stadium in downtown Minneapolis, and it has the same finish line as the marathon, which is in the Capitol down in St. Paul. And the difference between the marathon and 10 mile, obviously there's a big mile difference, but the marathon takes you down kind of by Lake Calhoun and Lake of the Eye, or Lake Harriet, and kind of like a windy, wavy way through Lake Nokomis, whereas the 10 mile is just kind of a straight shot across. So you start and finish in the same spot, but obviously a major difference in traveling time. So before that, I felt really good heading into the race. I'd done lots of training runs and had been pretty prepared. I did a 5 mile run the week before, and I felt really good, felt fast, felt loose. I'd never run a race like this before, so I didn't really know how to pace or any of that stuff, but I had like a running watch, and I thought, well, if I just keep running what I want to run, and I'll check my watch and let me know what I do. And if I'm going too fast, I'll slow down, or if I'm going too slow, I'll speed up, kind of thing. So going into the race, I felt really good and confident, and my fiance dropped me off downtown a little around 6-ish, I guess, and kind of got in with everybody else, and was really nervous and excited, that kind of adrenaline rush that you get when you're about to embark on something new and an athletic achievement. So just downtown, and really enjoyed that atmosphere, and got ready for the gun to get fired off.
Okay. So what was going through your mind when you were getting ready to go to the starting line? And I mean, did you have any expectations? Had you set some goals on what you wanted to do for that race? I mean, you wanted to finish. You didn't want it to end the way it did, with a heart-stopping finish. You didn't want that.
Right.
But what was your goal for the race?
Yeah. So obviously the first goal was to finish. That was the big one. But I had a goal kind of I didn't really know what my mileage was going to be, or like my pace. So I kind of said 8.5 minute miles was my goal. And my stretch goal was 8-minute miles. And then I said I can't go less than 9 minutes. So it's kind of like an 8 to 9 minute mile was what I was shooting for, which is what I trained for. And that was kind of the goal, was to finish for sure within an hour and a half, but maybe get it done in 80 minutes, like maybe just squeak by and get it done. So
Sure.
that was kind of the goal, and see how it went. And before the race, I was just jacked up. I was so excited, I guess. Most people meet me, even when I played football, they said, "You're too friendly for that. You don't have this demeanor of a big football guy." And I would tell people that, when it's game time, I get this kind of laser focus. And that's how I felt before the race. I was listening to music, and I just felt like I had this laser focus of like, all right, just one step in front of the other, just one step in front of the other, just really focused on running. And I was by myself, so I didn't have like a team or anything with me to talk to. I was just kind of focused on myself, and I was ready to have fun and be excited, but I was like, hey, just go for it, one step in front of the other.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I got to ask you too, were you an offensive or defensive lineman?
I was an offensive lineman. Yeah.
Offensive. Okay.
Offensive lineman and triple option offense and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was too. I was left tackle. I played left tackle, and so I gotta get out to Sauk Rapids and run with you, man. I need to drop a few pounds.
Yeah. So it's funny. I lost a lot of it when I stopped playing football. We would work out, 4 or 5 days a week, and I would eat all you can eat cafeteria and all that stuff. But I lost a lot of it when I was in Charleston, because it's so darn hot out there. And I feel like when I would run, I would sweat, and it was like 2 times the amplification of working out in Minnesota almost. But whenever you want to go for a run, you let me know. We can definitely do that.
Sure. I do a lot of power walking. I don't jog. I haven't done a lot of running or jogging. I power walk, but I try to do like maybe a 12-minute mile when I power walk, and go 2, 3, 4 miles, something like that. So I don't know if I could keep up with you, but
that's great. No, definitely anytime you can get out and be active, for sure. Take that.
Yeah. Okay, so the race starts. Your family's there. Your fiance's there at the starting line. They saw you off.
Yeah. So my fiance drops me off down at US Bank in that area, and then she went and met up with my parents. My parents drove down from Sauk Rapids, and the 3 of them met together, and they told me where they're going to meet me on the race. So it was going to be mile 1, mile 4, mile 7, and then at the end. So every 3 miles basically was what we planned. And I didn't really have an idea of like where stuff was, but I just figured I'd see them every 3 miles or so. So, excuse me, I saw them at mile 1, and there's the 3 of them were standing there. And I don't know if I heard them or saw them. I had headphones in, but I think I just must have. My dad's voice I can always hear in a crowd. I don't think that's just being raised by your dad. You can just hear his voice in a crowd. So ran over and gave my fiance a hug and said hi to my parents, and just kept on trucking along. So that's kind of the only time that I saw them, or remember seeing them, I suppose. And then I saw them again at mile 7, but I don't have much of a memory of that.
Okay. So you saw mile 1, mile 3. They took pictures, didn't they, at mile marker 3?
So I didn't see him at mile marker 4. So they missed me at mile 4. They saw me at 1. They're supposed to see me at 4, and they just missed me at mile 4. I must have been going too fast or something. And they saw me at mile 7. And then they were going to catch me at the end as well. Sure.
Okay. So you get to mile 7, and you don't have much of a memory of what happened after that. Your family gets to the finish line, and you don't show up.
Yeah.
And so what happened? What pick up the story from there? What was the next thing that happened? And then we can go back and fill in the holes.
Yeah. So my fiance, I guess I can go from her point of view. She was on. They have a great app that can track people as they run. So my fiance was tracking me, and she was trying to find me kind of near the end. So she was in the spot right to see me, kind of in between mile 9 and mile 10. She ran to see me, and my tracker said that I was there, and I ran right by her, but she didn't see me. So she was really confused. Then she went down to the finish line and was looking for me there, but I was nowhere to be found. I, unfortunately, or maybe not, I had a cardiac arrest that I suffered at mile 8. And so I actually don't have any memory after mile one, which is kind of odd. They say it's just due to the kind of the trauma, and when I
Sure.
fell, I had a concussion as well. So, yeah, at mile eight, a little after mile eight, my heart had something called ventricle fibrillation or ventricle tachycardia, where the ventricles, or the two bottom chambers of the heart, were beating probably 200 to 300 beats per minute, but they weren't pumping any blood. They were kind of fluttering, kind of spazzing is maybe the best word to think about. So I had no blood being pumped through my body, and I collapsed on the course. And
And you
yeah,
did
that's kind of
a face plant, didn't you? I mean, you messed up your face, and did you break some
yeah,
bones?
yeah. So from what I've been told, it was just it was a very unnatural fall, and it was due to the fact that I didn't have any blood pumping. I really just kind of collapsed in the kind of most aggressive way of that term. I landed on the left side of my face and broke several bones in my face, and had a concussion as well. So that's kind of how I ended up there.
So your heart stops, and you're unconscious. You don't know what's going on. But what happened then when you did the face plant?
Yeah, well, God happened. That's for sure. That's what happened when I was down there. A bunch of strangers and kind of guardian angels, I would say, that were medical professionals that were running beside me and behind me, stopped and performed CPR and saved my life. So that's kind of the short explanation of it. But there was people that were, nurses and doctors and other people that were involved that were all running in and around me and stopped to help me.
From what I read this in the local papers, and they talked about like maybe a dozen people that were all medical professionals that were running near you.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I've heard kind of 10 to 12 is what I hear. And yeah, 12 people that stopped, that were just like within a minute or two that were there. I mean, there were people that were there right when it happened, and then a couple other people stopped while they were there. And there's a firefighter that was there who obviously knew how to do CPR, and just the incredible amount of helpful people that were there at the right place at the right time, which we can certainly dive more into kind of their stories that I've heard from their point of view as well, which is like, it's almost unbelievable how they ended up where they did.
Really? Well, that's what we call God dots, being at the right place, the right time. I've had friends call it, instead of coincidence, call it God incidents. But I've always called these God dots. It's because you take one dot and the other, and God connects them. And there's no coincidence involved, because it's just too many. There are too many coincidences. And so to have 10 to 12 medical professionals right there, and your heart's stopped. So how long before your heart was, I mean, the ambulance finally gets there with the paramedics and they defib you, but how long was that?
Yeah. So the reports that people have told me was anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. They were doing CPR. And they don't really know that. They weren't necessarily timing themselves, because when people are doing CPR, it's very obviously high adrenaline. It's a lot of work, and you're just not thinking. You just kind of zone in. And so one of the runners told me that the mile 8, his eighth mile, was about 14 minutes longer than any other mile. So he just said, I'm just guessing it was about 14 minutes of CPR. And so. Yeah, and it was, from what I've been told, it was kind of 3 to 5 people that were just rotating through doing CPR, and some people there was a breathing, kind of a breathing tube apparatus that one of the volunteers had that came and brought that. So they were doing breaths on me, and other people were doing CPR, and then some other folks were just helping out, stabilizing my body and making sure everything was okay. But yeah, it's certainly kind of a miraculous story, and how I actually had dinner with, I think 8 of them. I had the fortunate opportunity to have dinner with them. Me and my fiance, we met with them at the Twin Cities in Motion dinner banquet, and so we got to talk to them more and kind of connect with them and kind of close the loop on that. And I think it was great for them, as well as great for us to close kind of that emotional chapter, for sure, because they've been through a lot with giving CPR to somebody and going through that. But they all were there, and they just kind of looked at each other, and they just kind of knew they would speak in medical terminology and they would all understand. And then all of a sudden they just started, someone made the call to do CPR and they went for it.
And I
from there it was
imagine,
just adrenaline.
I imagine a lot of these professionals see the story doesn't have a good ending. You know, a lot of the CPR doesn't work. With you, they were able to keep your heart pumping for those 12 to 14 minutes, whatever that was, that interval was, keep the blood going until you could, be defibbed. And wow, just awesome.
Right.
That had to be an emotional time, meeting with those people for the first time and getting to thank them and see
Right.
their faces and find out who they were and why they were there.
It was great to see everybody. Yeah, it was great to be in that experience and kind of understand that. We had the pleasure of meeting with them, and one of the guys was a firefighter, and he had just said that he's been working as a volunteer firefighter for a number of years, and I was the first person that he saved. Certainly was not the first person he did CPR on, but was the first person that he actually saved.
Wow.
But yeah, when you meet people that save your life, you kind of are like, what do you bring them chocolates? Do you bring them a thank you card? Like, what do you bring these people, and there's nothing you can bring, that's just how it is. And you just, I tell people now, it's not that I was holding back on my life before, but the best thing you can do is just live your life to the best of your ability and just do the best that you can. And meeting those people was great kind of somewhat of a closure in terms of for them and for us to meet them. But they all knew who I was, and I had no idea who they were. If you line them up in a room and said, who saved you, I wouldn't have any idea. So it was kind of interesting to meet them, and then not only hear the story of how they saved me, but just to hear who they are, hear their stories, and hear who's their family, where they're from, what they like to do, and build those relationships from there. And not necessarily making best friends, but just enjoying their company and just being together in that relationship is pretty incredible.
Yeah, just to know that God brought you together and God connected those dots, that makes a difference too. It wasn't happenstance. They were supposed to be there, and some of them probably don't understand that or don't get that, but you sure do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking about today. I went for a walk today, and I was just thinking about kind of this interview coming up. And I thought, you know what? It's funny to think that I was never supposed to even finish this race on October 6th. God, from the time I signed up, he knew what was going to happen, and I didn't. But I was never planning to do that, and it's just pretty incredible, and it's cool to think about.
Yeah, it really is. It's an amazing story. So you get to the hospital and pick it up there. Your fiance gets a call on her phone.
Yeah, so they have CPR on me, and ambulance comes, gives me defib, takes one shock, gets me back to beating heart again, which is a great sign.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some people don't even have that. They can help you CPR, and then the shock comes, they don't even get your heart back with the shock. So very fortunate there. Another God dot, as you would say, that it just worked like that. And rushed to the hospital, rushed to a local hospital in the Twin Cities, and then my fiance is down at the finish line with my family, and they're waiting, and I have my phone on me the whole time, so they just don't know what's happening or what's going on. And then my fiance gets a call from a private number, and usually you wouldn't really answer kind of a private number, or I wouldn't, at least. You just don't know what to expect. But she thought, maybe I should. And she answered it, and it was a police officer who had informed them that I was being rushed to the hospital for an accident, and they were going to send a squad car to pick them up and then bring me to meet them there at the hospital. So at that time, they still had no idea what the accident was. They were just told it was an accident. And so it could have been, as harmless, or maybe I fell down and hit my head, or I broke my leg or broke my arm or something like that. But they had no idea what it was like on the other side.
I can't imagine that they would have suspected that you'd had a heart attack, that your heart had stopped. When you're 25 and in great physical shape, that's not on the list.
Right.
So they get to the hospital, and so what happened with you? When did you become aware of what happened?
Yeah, so I have kind of some foggy memories of the hospital. And so I don't really remember having a coming to moment. Um, but I know I had that, and I had that kind of a number of times. But um, from what my family's told me, I had asked a lot of questions about what happened. I didn't know. I just kept asking, and I kept forgetting, and asking and forgetting, and asking and forgetting. So, and when I would ask, they'd tell me what happened, and then sometimes I would be really sad, or sometimes I wouldn't say much. I was just I was in a pretty mental state was still a little odd with the concussion and everything. So I never had a moment of like a gasp moment, like I'm in the hospital, what happened? But kind of by the time I came to, I fully understood what was going on and knew what was going on and kind of what happened. But even from there, it was kind of like I had this thing happen to me, but there were really no answers medically, or didn't know any of the stories yet of who saved me and how they saved me and who they were, and kind of putting all those pieces together.
Mm-hmm. So who helped you piece all that together eventually?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a lot of just the kind of my saviors that have helped me a lot understand what's happened and what's going on. So we all have different vantage points, obviously. So I was running, and I don't remember much, obviously, after the first mile. So I'm kind of out of the equation right now. Amy and my parents, they're at the end of the race. And so kind of that chunk in between is all just filled in by people that I've talked to, the saviors of me, and police officers and firefighters, the people that were there to help me. That's kind of who's filled in the gaps of that running time. And then medically, we can talk more about it, but there's no real answer as to why it happened medically. And that's been filled in through awesome doctors and nurses and things like that as well.
Mm-hmm. So how long were you in the hospital recovering?
So we were in the Twin Cities on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And then Tuesday evening, we went down to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Okay. And we spent Tuesday until the following Sunday, so until the 13th. We were down in Mayo, and then had follow-ups down at Mayo on the 14th, and then head back to the Twin Cities on the 14th. And we've been back kind of for a couple of weeks. We were back. We went back down to Mayo for defibrillator surgery. And yeah, so it's been a long process since October.
But the prognosis is good?
The prognosis is that I have a healthy heart, and that's a good sign. Yeah. And so it can be, I think, a little bit, I don't know what the word would be, not necessarily frustrating or unsettling, but it's just it's odd to have something happen and then just go, and, great doctors and nurses say, we don't have a reason. And you kind of go, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no reason. And so, and I think that's kind of that's just what they've told me. They don't have a reason yet. And there's been studies and things that are being done as we speak that might tell us what happened in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, or maybe I'll never know. And that's okay. I've definitely overcome that. And so we don't know why it happened, but it did. And now it's time to kind of respond in the way that we're called to respond.
So you had the follow-up surgery and doing some monitoring now, but you feel good?
Yeah. So I feel really good. So we had surgery in the first part of November, and that was certainly it was interesting. It's kind of more. I had more, I'd say, pain and more kind of achiness from the surgery than I did actually from falling. After I fell the first time after the accident, I didn't really. I woke up and I felt pretty good. If I didn't know anything at all, you wouldn't be able to tell me that I had an issue. I felt good, and shortly after, I was running a little bit and walking a little bit and just doing all sorts of things. But after the surgery, it's been kind of a long haul back because they did surgery on my heart, which is not a common thing for people as well as young people. So I've been taking it really slow and not lifting things over 5 pounds and. Sure. Not trying to avoiding any accidents or issues or anything like that. So that's kind of been the road from there. And by about mid-December, I should be able to get back into doing some more activity. And then by February, I have the green light to do everything again. Run, jump, swim, all that stuff, which is a pretty incredible, exciting time to look forward to. But right now, this season of life, we're learning a lot as well.
Well, you've got something major coming between now and February. What is that?
Yeah, so I'm getting married to my best friend in January. So
That's awesome.
started January, we're getting married, and it's kind of been another, you plan for a wedding, and we were certainly doing a lot of wedding planning, and then this thing drops right in the middle of it, and it kind of blows up a lot of the plans that she had. But my fiance is she's the best, and so to be able to work through all this with her, and on top of it, plan kind of this awesome wedding as well. It's just been a lot, but it's totally been worth it, and it's been an awesome experience.
Well, you already gave your heart to her, so she's got to be one of those caretakers that takes care of your heart from here on.
Yeah. She definitely. So she went to school. She thought about doing nursing in school, but then decided to do something else. But she is quite the nurse. She would stay with me in the hospital every night, and she would ask questions and be on top of everything and check my medications and all that stuff. So she is definitely the right person there. And that's another a God dot for sure. We talk about that all the time. It's like, obviously this happened to me, but this wouldn't have this be a totally different experience without her. And so we talk a lot about that and how God's taking us through it and how we're working together to glorify Him.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, it sounds like there's one other piece of the story that we haven't touched on that is kind of the cool God dot that happened. Right. It has to do with your runner's bib. So tell us about what that was all about, what you did. You made a change at the last minute.
Yeah, so when I signed up for the race, this was my first race that I actually had a bib. So my first 5K, they just said show up, and I don't know if they gave us a sticker or we just got one when we got there. But basically, this is the first time I signed up for a race, and then I could personalize my bib. And most people put their name or maybe something that they're running for, maybe an organization or a cause or something like that. And kind of in running culture, you would see their name and then you could cheer for them, or you could say something encouraging to them, which is a pretty cool part of this marathon. It's like the most encouraging 4 hours of your life, basically. If you run the marathon, it's just people shouting your name all the time. But I originally had my name on there because I thought that's what everybody else does. But then one day I was just heading home, or I was just in life, and I had a thought that said, you should change your running bib to something that's a profession of faith and something that would maybe encourage somebody else, or make someone think, or encourage me. Because I thought, if I have this on my bib, if I have this proclamation of God or Jesus or something, that would encourage me to keep running, because I know every step I take, I'm encouraging someone else by sharing the name of Jesus and God throughout Minneapolis. That's kind of what I thought of. And so I thought, well, what do I put, and what fits, all that stuff. And I just thought of Jesus Saves, because it's pretty two words, pretty standard. Jesus saves, and gets the point across, and seems to make sense. That's kind of what I cling to.
So you replaced your name with Jesus Saves. You have the bib you can show us?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's right here.
Okay. Jesus
right
Saves. Yeah. So did you get some interesting feedback and comments on that when people saw it? They're looking at your name and they're going, Mr. Saves?
Yeah, no, I don't know if anybody mentioned anything to me, I guess. So
they had to see it though.
They had to see it, right? So when I emailed Twin Cities in Motion, and I wasn't sure kind of what if I could even change it or what feedback I would get, but I said I want to change my name to Jesus Saves on my bib, and the person just said, yeah, absolutely, sounds great, here you go. And I just said, all right, that was easy. So I hadn't really told anybody either. I just thought it would be kind of a fun thing for my family and my fiance to see, and something that just would be encouraging for people. But I kind of joke, I didn't know kind of how God would take that and use that, and He certainly has spread it across the country and the world, kind of with the media that's followed what happened.
Yeah, all the pictures that were taken and stories that were done, and reporting on the whole thing. That was a God dot that you didn't know about when you did that it was going to have that kind of impact. You probably thought, well, you might get into a picture, at the finish line or something, and might be on,
right.
But you didn't expect to be on the news. And
Right. Yeah. I'd like planned, I was hoping that I could maybe take a photo after and then make a comment or post on Instagram or something about what my bib meant. And
Hmm.
that was kind of my goal, was to just kind of just throw that in there for my friends who are Christians or friends who aren't Christians, to just to say,
Hmm.
hey, this is how I see us living it out. This is what I wanted to do. This hopefully is encouraging to you. But I had no idea how it would spread.
So, there was one other God dot that happened as a result, well, not as a result of that bib, but it kind of confirmed the fact that you should have that on your bib. Tell us what that
Yeah.
one was.
Yeah. So one of the people that saved me is he goes by Jesse, but his legal name is Jesus, which is spelled Jesus, Jesus. And so that's kind of the incredible God that captured a lot of the media attention, which I had 12 wonderful people that saved me, and Jesse's just one of them. He's a great guy. He's an awesome dude, but it's a pretty incredible God dot that truly, I think, is what helped it go national and helped it be shared with the world, and help people see that Jesus saves. And I think it's this kind of God going, yeah, I was there. Yeah,
That's
like
got that's got to be, I have this image when these things happen that God just sort of rubs his hands together and pulls a bunch of the angels over to the balcony in heaven and goes, "Watch this."
right, right,
So
exactly.
I've got the story here, and now Jesus, was he a nurse?
He's a nurse anesthetist.
Okay,
Uh, yeah, so
yeah, I remember reading that.
he works in hospitals doing that, and he had mentioned that he had done some of those codes before when things happen, and a lot of the people that were there had some experience with that, or training at least, that they knew what to look for and knew what it was, and had been through all their own experiences, which is, it's crazy to think about the experiences of all those individuals. So if you wanted to go God dot crazy here, we could talk about why all of them chose to be in the medical profession, or where they chose
Hmm.
to live where they wanted to live, or who they
Hmm.
chose to marry, or where they chose to study, or what they wanted to do, or and if you, I mean, the obvious one is how fast they wanted to run, or what their physical capabilities were, and
Hmm.
all these different things you could think of. There was two gentlemen that were running, that they were supposed to run the day before, and kind of a, they call it the Looney Challenge, and it's multiple races in this Twin Cities marathon weekend. And if they had done that, it actually had gotten rained out the day before. There was some weather issues, so they actually didn't run those Looney races, and ended up running this Twin Cities 10 mile. And if they would have ran those other races, they probably would have had different times, and just all this stuff.
Hmm.
And it's cool to think about God being right there.
Makes your head spin a little bit to see how God puts all of these, connects all these dots together. And I think God's got this on the highlights reel too. He's going to replay this so that you get to see it.
Yeah,
he'll he'll
yeah, that would
he'll
be.
play it back, man, and you'll get to wow, that look at that, and you'll get to watch it
Uh,
like a highlights reel.
Right. Yeah, I certainly hope so. And it's cool. I mean, we can talk more about it, certainly, but kind of the God dots that have come after and what that's looked like. And um, we've it's been a pretty emotional and traumatic experience for lots of people, but we're looking at it like this is for the glory of God, and how are we going to glorify God through this whole situation? And Amy and I, we have certainly had low points. It's been a great experience, but it's been hard. It's been challenging. There's no doubt. We know who to bring those sorrows to, but we talk about a lot. If it makes one person draw closer to God, that's totally worth it. If it brings glory to God 1 ounce, it's worth it. Because that's what we're called to do. And it's been cool to see those God dots kind of explode from here, from something that happened to me, that I was used up for that purpose.
So tell us a few of the things that you know about that have happened as a result of your story.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'll just say one comment quick. I had a pastor told us one time in a sermon. He said, "When I get to heaven, the first place I'm going to go is the information desk." And that's exactly what I kind of hear there, is like the information desk is going to be the best place to be in heaven, because God's going to walk you through everything.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I've had people. I mean, first off, I'm 25. I have Facebook and Instagram and kind of that stuff. And I've been able to post and share this story and share it with the words, proclaim the name of Jesus, and seeing the comments and the likes and all that stuff. And I just don't, it's not for me, but it's for God. And it's really cool to see that kind of in a public sphere, where we don't often see those types of messages displayed in places that have some other, inappropriate negative messages. So that's kind of the first thing that was really cool, to share the message and to get that out with people and to see the name of Jesus being shouted out all over Facebook. And it was really cool to see that. I kind of the most prominent one in my head, kind of the God dot. I had a friend who in college who I was close with, and a great guy. And he just texted me a couple weeks after it happened and just kind of poured out his heart about my story and how it impacted him. And he recently had kind of 2 friends pass away unexpectedly, which really shook him pretty bad. And so he, at that point, was really questioning his faith and why would God do this? And what does that mean? And all those type of questions that run through people's heads. And when that happened, he kind of turned away from his faith. But he said that after seeing this story and seeing how everything's played out, he said that he just had this new fire lit inside of him, to kind of serve the Lord. And so that was just like, I showed it to Amy, my fiance. I'm like, this is what it's all about here. Like, I'll put in 25 defibrillators for the next 25 years of 25 people that weren't going to go to Christ or going to Christ. Like it doesn't matter, that's what it's all about. And that's what we're called to do. And that was just cool to see that. And we've heard lots of other kind of things from people saying, this is super encouraging, very nice to hear this story. Like, thank you for sharing, very motivational. All those things as well have been little God dots, but that one that from my former classmate really sticks out the most.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you have no idea. We have no idea the ripple effect that takes place from things that happen to us that we don't understand. Like you say, you don't know why this happened. The medical professionals don't even know why this happened, but God does. And he has a purpose for it, and he's using you in ways that you don't even know. So that's cool. That is what it's all about.
Right.
So you got well, anything else you want to add on the God dots front, the ripple effect?
I think it's good too. Amy and I have talked a lot about this, is that if no one said anything to us, if no one let us know that we had impacted their life, we still have faith in God that if this is what he wanted us to do, it's what we would want to do. And I think that's a lot of times with God dots, we don't always see them. We don't see the majority of the God dots. We don't see them ever. But to still be encouraged to go out and serve the Lord, and those God dots will certainly follow, and just be obedient to him for sure.
And there's coming a time when we're going to find out. We're going to, the curtain's going to get pulled back. We're going to see the rest of the story, and we're going to put it all together and go, oh, I see it now. I see it now. Yeah. That's going to be a cool moment. Right. So you finished this whole thing, and the only thing you didn't get to do was finish the run. You didn't get to the finish line. So you're ever going to do that? Yeah.
So we actually have already done that, which is crazy. So
you have?
So in between, I told you my resolution in 2019 was to go finish the race. And by golly, I was going to finish it in 2019, because if I waited till after my surgery, I'd have to wait till 2020. And so we had the time in between when I fell and the time before my surgery. I was wearing kind of a wearable defibrillator. And so it was kind of a vest I wore under my clothes, and that would track my heart, and it would shock me if something were to go wrong. And they said, you can do kind of anything you want with that. You can't go swimming, obviously, but you can go for it. You can do what you need to do with that. So we set a plan the Saturday before we had surgery. We had the surgery the following Tuesday. I said, I want to go finish it. And we had talked about it in the hospital that we were going to finish it at some point. And my fiance had brought it up, and I was like, that's a great idea. Like, we're going to go finish it. And we had talked about walking it. And I think it was kind of waiting until this whole thing was done. But I had this fire to go finish it go and finish it kind of sooner than most people thought we could. So we lined up where it all happened. We started at least in the general spot of where it happened, and hit the road for the last 2 miles and finished down at the St. Paul Capitol. And that was one of the kind of the best feeling that I'd felt in a long time, of just kind of joy and accomplishment, and just kind of that overwhelming feeling of doing something you've been training for. And that's when I got to wear my medal finally. So I had the TCM, Twin Cities in Motion folks, came to the hospital, and they're just a great organization. If I can give them a shout out on here, they came to the hospital and gave me my medal. And then I don't remember saying this, but I was like, I can't wear this. I can't. I didn't finish. I can't wear this. And so, and I held on to that. I just said, I need to finish it before I wear this medal. So I put the medal under my bed, and I said, when I finish it, we'll wear it. So once I crossed the finish line, my dad put it around my neck, and we went from there. So it was pretty special.
Awesome. But they came to the hospital to bring you the medal, even though you hadn't finished the race. So you had it for about a month before you finished?
Yeah, so they came in when we were at the hospital in the Twin Cities. So had it for just under a month, and just kept it with me, kept it in my room, and it was a little bit of motivation. And now I have new goals to set for 2020.
That's so cool. You think you'll run it again?
That's the question, the big question. I do. I really do. So my master plan, which is not much of a plan, I was going to run the 10 mile this year. And if it went well, I'd run the marathon in 2020, because I turned 26. I wanted to run 26 miles in my 26th year. And so, I don't know why I can't do that still. And I think that's something that will for sure medically make sure that we're all cleared to go, and we don't want to be silly. But I feel very confident about running the 10 mile or the marathon next year, and getting another bib and going for it and sharing the name of Jesus.
You're going to put Jesus Saves on that one?
I don't know. We'll see what we come up with. I think it'll definitely be put somewhere around. We'll definitely proclaim that and see what we can do just to bring glory to His name and make sure that's the focus. And I'm just happy that I can be the catalyst to do that and have this platform that obviously my plan was to run the race and finish in St. Paul and go get lunch with my parents and my fiance and all that stuff. But God said, nope. And this plan is so much better because I get to be a catalyst. I get to be a God dot. And that's the really cool thing about it.
Yeah. And those God dots it's so interesting to me with this whole idea that other people are God dots to us so that we can be God dots to other people. You know, it's a ripple effect. You can call it dominoes or whatever. But it's God using us. I mean, He uses us to do His work, and we're His hands, His feet, His mouth, and that's all part of His plan and His design. And I think the cool thing too, you didn't have much choice because your heart stopped. You had to be a God dot man. But other people are put in a situation where God wants to use them, and they step away and they don't go there. And then they miss the blessing of whatever would have happened, because then God will use somebody else to be that God dot that you could have been. So you were kind of like a reluctant God dot in this situation. I know you're not reluctant, but you weren't planning for it to go this way. But when it went sideways, you had to go with it. And now you get the blessing of what all comes beyond that, and all the things, all the stories that come out of what happened and what you're going through, because you're still going through it. You're still recovering. So look, you're I didn't say this before, but you messed up your face. You broke bones, and you're looking great. And and I imagine that you and Amy are really excited for the next few weeks as you get ready for your wedding. And so we want to have you back on the podcast and talk about that. Maybe a good time would be as you're getting ready for the marathon next year, kind of get an update from you and what all happened, and maybe you can have Amy on with you and we can meet her. That'd be cool. Yeah. What else do you want to add to the mix, to the story that we haven't touched on?
We've touched a lot of this stuff, and a couple of things I think kind of the main point that we talked about a little bit here is just about how we respond to things that happen to us. And you talked about I was a reluctant God dot. I had no idea this was going to happen. I did not have a choice whether my heart was going to stop, but I did have a choice of how we were going to respond. And I think that's an important thing that all people, especially as Christians, we kind of have a kind of a rule book, are things that ways to respond, are ways to step into trial and tribulation and step into even success and how we're going to respond in everything that we do. And I just would encourage people to step into God's plan and be obedient to him and just follow what he calls us to do every day. And so didn't have a choice of how this happened, but definitely have a choice even today, talking to people and how we live our lives in response of that. And I'm very thankful for having a faith community around me that supports me, as well as people that have taught me and trained me to respond in this way. Because I definitely think that it's not a natural thing to do, is to respond in the way that God calls us to, because we're human and we don't really do that. So definitely want to encourage everyone out there to respond to God and be obedient to him. And just obviously huge gratitude to everyone who saved me. Those names that you've listed off, just people that I've been able to meet and people that I've been able to communicate with through email. It's just great to hear their names and cool to think about that those being God dots to me and who were God dots to them and all that stuff. So that's pretty incredible.
Be really cool for some of them to stay in contact, and because I'm sure some of them are wondering, who is this guy? What's God got planned for him in the future, man? Yeah, because that's going to be a story, and it'd be really cool to be able to stay in contact and share that with them. And because of what they did and the God dot they were, you've been able to move on with your life and your family, eventually get married here and have kids down the road, and
right.
And it's all because they were God dots and they were in the right place at the right time. As God was working out his plan and his design.
Right. Absolutely. Amen.
So anything else you want to add? It's a great story.
Yeah, no, man, Jesus saves. That's the biggest thing. That's what it has been before, and that's what it will be now, and that's what it's going to be in the future.
Hey, you got to show us the medal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I get to wear this thing now. So here it is right here. So pretty cool.
Yes. Awesome. The finisher's medal. You put it on.
Might as well.
Yeah, put it on.
Yeah.
Looks good on you.
It's pretty cool, and it was fun. So when we finished the race, talked about people that I emailed all those people when I finished and sent them photos, and I actually told them when I was going to finish, kind of when I was going to run and all that stuff. And a couple people came out to see us, and that was really cool. And then to be able to share that with them and to share that success and kind of that encouragement. So we hope to keep doing that. And I would encourage listeners out there to share their God dot moments and to keep people involved and encouraged in all their things and just continue to keep God present all the time.
So thanks so much. Thanks so much for being on, and we'll hope to have you back with Amy and get to know her a little bit too, and get to hear her side of the story when she comes on. And
yeah,
you're going to get married in Sauk Rapids?
Actually, we're getting married in Twin Cities.
Oh, you're on the Twin Cities. Okay.
Yep, we're getting married in Bloomington at our church, and then we'll have a reception nearby, and then we're heading off to Mexico a couple days later, and going to get out of the cold. So it'll be a great time and a great time to relax and decompress and to share in that with Amy.
Well, we're Twin Cities residents, so maybe we'll crash the wedding. We'll come and see
I'll let you know after. I won't put it on the podcast, maybe, but I can let you know.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man. God bless you and your journey, and we'll keep tabs with you and hope to have you back sometime next year after you're married and getting ready for the next marathon.
Yeah, sounds good, Kevin. Thank you. God bless.
What an amazing story. What an incredible young man. God has some awesome things in store for Tyler Moon. We're going to keep in touch with him. We'll have him back on a podcast soon, and we'll let you know when that happens. If you want to stay informed, please stop by our free Facebook group and join. That's the place where we'll post news about new podcast episodes, all the latest God Dots news. You won't miss a thing if you stop by there. Plus, you can post your own God Dots stories and comment on others. So thanks for listening today. Hope you have a great week. And remember, just like Tyler Moon, God is looking out for you. Thanks for listening to God Dots Radio. If you enjoyed today's program and want to know more, check out our website, goddots.org. Please subscribe to the podcast to stay connected. And to read and submit stories, be sure to join our free Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/goddots. Join me, the God Dots guy, next time for more unforgettable stories of divine connections on God Dots Radio. God Dots is a ministry of God Dots International. And don't forget, God is looking out for you.